intro question for you to get us started, and it is, which do you prefer writing? Kiss scenes or conflict scenes?
Yeah.
And we'll start with Rad, since she appears to love that question.
Yeah, I love that question a lot. I prefer writing conflict scenes because I really like getting into my characters before I get to the point in the book where the kiss is going to really work out, unless I'm doing an erotic romance and then they kiss on the first page and have sex on the second page. But usually it's more like sex in the middle. So I like conflict because for me that builds the story up.
Good, cool. Karis, how about you?
I'd say kiss because I have to push myself to make I think that in my perfect world, by chapter 3, everything's just fine and they're okay and they're in love, because I don't like putting them through that. But so the kiss scenes are easier for me than conflict.
Fair enough. Soft-hearted there, Karis.
I love my characters.
That's sweet. Joy, how about you? A kiss or conflict?
Definitely kiss. I hate writing conflict. I have a hard time coming up with the reason for them not to get along all of a sudden. So definitely a kiss.
All right, 2 votes for kiss, and Catherine is our tiebreaker.
I'm going to go with conflict. I'm inherently very, very shy, so the kisses always embarrass me. So I love writing conflict. Also, I like messy. I really like when people get messy just in their daily life, and I just think it's way more fun to write conflict. I mean, conflict doesn't have to be like violent or extreme. It can just be, people saying things that the second that it comes out of their mouth, they're like, "Oh my God, why did I say that?" So I much prefer to write conflict.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think we're pretty even here. And yeah, in the chat, if you guys want to chime in about which you like to write or read.
The problem I have writing kisses is that I'm afraid it's going to be too short. And it's like, oh, I have to make this longer. And how do I make them kiss for 2 pages? And it's like, so, that's much harder than writing conflict, is writing 2 pages of kissing.
Just lots of kissing. just write more kisses. You never have too many. All right. Why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? I'm sorry I'm making you do it. I do not have your bios. But we can get to know each other. So we'll start with Rad again. Do you want to introduce yourself and maybe say a little bit about Swept Away?
Okay. I'm Radclyffe. I write romances of pretty much all types, although in the last few years, I've mostly been writing medical romances, first responders, contemporary romances, and I just started back writing some of my paranormal romances. I also publish, and now and then I bother the authors by editing. My most recent book was Swept Away, which came out in March, which I really had a great time writing. It's set in the Appalachian Mountains. It basically features a small group of rural outreach docs and EMTs who get stranded in a mountain town during a flood. So that's the story. And my book coming out in July is Code Call, which is a medical romance set completely in an emergency room and may or may not be the first in a new emergency romance series.
Okay, well, hopefully, yes. I'm voting for a new series from Rad. I'm just replying to Stacey's comment to make up bios for everyone. I would if I had, prepared in advance, subbing in the last minute here. So I can't do it off the cuff, unfortunately, but if you are at Women's Week, I do make up the bios there every year, which people seem to like. Karis, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your next book.
Okay, I'm Karis, and I live in the Pacific Northwest and set my romances here. I write mostly contemporary romances, and then I also have 2 romantic suspense kind of romantic mystery series. And I have, ta-da, Big Corpse on Campus is the third book in my University Police series, and that came out last June. And then Love Takes a Village, there we go, is my contemporary romance set in the Bavarian Christmas town of Leavenworth in Washington. And this one came out in December of last year, and it's a woman who's kind of the unwilling new head chef of a German restaurant, and then the daughter of an owner of a multi-generational candy store in the town, and how they kind of deal with their own issues and then deal with getting together. So, yeah.
Oh, that sounds,
Nice.
and now I'm hungry. So
Christmas story. Good one.
I love it. And I love the titles for your police campus series too. They're always so much fun.
Oh.
Karis comes up with those totally on her own. Like probably half the books we publish, I, have a hand in the title, but those ones are all you, and they're just perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joy, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your newest book.
My latest book is called My Boyfriend's Wife, and it's about a woman that finds out that the guy she's been dating is married when she gets a phone call in the middle of the night from the guy's wife, and she agrees to help her to try to get money from a prenup when she gets a divorce. And in the process, of course, they get closer because it is a romance. And then we got that rotten conflict coming in, which they somehow seem to get past. That's my 10th
I'll say.
with Bold Strokes, and I vote for more paranormal romance. So keep going on that. Almost all of my books are contemporary romance, with the exception of one called Before Now, where one of the main characters starts having flashbacks to a past life she had with the other main character in Scotland in the 1400s.
Wow.
So we have two stories going on at the same time with that one. So besides writing, I'm also an artist, and I grow way too many fig trees.
Nice.
Joy is actually a fabulous artist.
Thank
if you
you.
have a chance to look up her stuff, I have one of her drawings. And Catherine,
What do you have? I don't remember.
I bought it from you before I ever knew you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think you mentioned this before. Yeah.
Yeah, from like eBay or something, just
probably.
totally
Yeah.
randomly. Yeah.
That's cool.
then-
Thank you.
You like submitted a book, and I'm like, wait.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Small world, yeah.
Yes.
Catherine, tell us about yourself.
My name is Catherine Lane. I live in sunny Southern California. You can see from the sun pouring in the background. Most of my books, I think all of my books take place in California, so I really like the state that I live in. My latest book is Echoes of Love, right here. And thanks for the segue, Joy. It is a paranormal romance. I write only contemporary, and most of my books are sports oriented, but this one I sort of took a different path, and it is about my main character, Hazel. She has the ability to see past memories play out in front of her as if that are tied to a specific location, as if they are movies. And of course, she connects up with somebody who is a big skeptic, doesn't believe in that at all. And if we're going to go into the trope part of it, that is the big trope of the book. And they have to work their way through their own ideologies and into each other's hearts.
Oh, lovely. All right. And Joy, you have one to add to your TBR. Okay. Marie is on her way, but I am going to start us off. And my first question for you is, so let's just go to the heart of the panel here. What do we think about tropes? Do tropes make romance comforting, kind of having some predictable themes, or is that predictability, bad, annoying? You've read one, you've read them all. Where do we kind of stand in this debate? We'll start with Karis.
Okay. I like tropes. I like kind of knowing what I'm getting into when I'm reading something, and knowing ahead of time. I think when we're talking about do they make them predictable, I think there's a difference between predictable and stale. And if something just seems overdone because it's what's popular, that can get tiring if I feel like I'm reading the same book over and over. But when I go into a book and I know what I want, I like to kind of have that predictability of knowing the tropes. And I also like my readers to be able to find my books if they're what they're looking for. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the marketing with tropes. Catherine, how about you?
I love tropes. I've always loved tropes. I think they're so comforting when you pick up a book and you know exactly what you're getting into. I think obviously the skill for the author and the joy for the reader is to discover how the author turns it on its head or makes it fresh or makes it unpredictable. And I think that is also something that really works for a trope because you're coming in thinking that you know everything and then the surprise of, oh my gosh, this is different and this is the way it is different, I think just sort of opens up a brand new world for the reader. And of course, I have tropes that I absolutely love. Like I love the forced proximity trope where two characters, are put into a sort of a boiler, a situation where everything is going to boil over. I also love the what's another trope that I absolutely love? I love the fish out of water trope, where you have a character who for sure knows who she is. She's walking down her path, nothing's going to stop her, and then wham, she's in a world that she has no clue how to navigate. So those are some of the tropes that I really like. I mean, I can certainly talk about tropes that I don't like, but I think that's the beauty of tropes, that you know exactly what you're getting into the second you pick up the book.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Definitely helps you in choosing what to read. I agree. Rad.
Mhm.
Um, I like tropes. I think tropes are a tool. As Karis said, I think that they're in and of themselves neutral. Um, it's a overall sensibility of the storyline. It's kind of like the motif, but what we do with it, just like when we create characters, we make them our own by making the characters unique and the interactions between the characters unique and the settings unique and the conflict, which everybody loves to write, unique. So I think, yeah, I think tropes are another tool in our armamentarium that helps us decide how we're going to write the book, how we're going to structure the book, and certainly what we're going to tell readers about the book.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll stop there. But I think it would be fun at some point if we all said what our favorite tropes were. Now I'm done.
Okay, I will add that to the list. And Joy.
As far as romance goes, it's predictable in the aspect that you know they're going to end up together. Although I did read one book a long time ago that was labeled a romance where one of the characters died.
That's not a romance. Yeah.
No, it's not a romance, although it was labeled that way, and it ticked
I
me
know what
off.
you're talking about too.
Yeah, because you're reading a romance because you want them to end up together. You want that happy ending. It takes you away from your own struggles in your own life. So yeah, I was not happy about that. But so the ending is predictable, but how they get there and the journey is what makes it unpredictable. And the more, the author puts in their unexpected things, I think the better it is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, since Rad has fed me the next question, you get to go first. What's your favorite trope?
Probably bodyguard, the bodyguard trope.
That's a good one.
Bodyguard / protector, because that fits in so well with just about everything I write.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. That would be good with your more adventure type books. What about you, Joy? Favorite trope?
I'm struggling with this. I'm actually looking at the books on my shelf to try to figure out an answer. I don't know. I think it varies. I don't think I have a favorite. What I don't like the Ice Queen or the Enemies to Lovers. That's definitely not my favorite. Although I did write a novella with that in there, but yeah, I don't think I have a favorite.
Okay, Joy can't choose. What about you, Catherine?
Well, I jumped to this question earlier. I apologize. I really like, the fish out of water trope, but can I tell you the trope that I don't like? Is that
Sure.
okay? All
Yeah.
right. One of the tropes that I absolutely do not like is "It was all a dream," where
Hmm.
you go through the entire journey and you're with the characters and you're in there, and then the last, like, page or the last moment of the movie, they pull the rug out from underneath you, and I feel like that's just not my cup of tea at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just, ugh. Even if it's The Sixth Sense, which is 100% a great movie, but when, he said, "I see dead people," I was just like, where everybody else was, "Oh my God, that's unbelievable."
Yeah.
I kind of think it takes something that should have been an emotional journey and turns it kind of into an intellectual journey where you have to go back and figure out, well, was it really a dream? Did I see it's not a dream? And I like my books and my movies to be more emotional.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And Karis, let's do your favorite and your least favorite.
Okay, for writing, I think my favorite trope is like Catherine's saying, the fish out of water. I like making my characters an outsider somewhere, like popping them into a small town if they're not used to that, or just something that makes them feel unsure and off balance, and then they have to kind of re-examine things.
Hmm.
In reading or writing, the found family trope is just my absolute favorite, having
Hmm.
that as part of the book. And least favorite is miscommunication when it could have been solved on page one if they just said one sentence and they don't. That frustrates me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Rad, did you want to say your least favorite?
Yeah, I made a little list here, see, of all the tropes I was thinking about beforehand, and I've
Good
just been
job.
looking at them. And I think probably I won't say Secret Baby because it's doable.
I did a
Um,
really good one on Secret Baby, sort of.
yeah.
A little
I
twist
think
on it.
I think for me, probably Friends to Lovers. It's a little too lukewarm for me. Um, and it's also like, well, why the F didn't you do something about it beforehand when you had a chance instead of standing around while she got together with somebody else? So for me, it's just not a real enjoyable journey. So I wouldn't write it, but it certainly is something that's really popular.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Friends to Lovers. So if anyone wants to put in the chat what their favorite trope is, give these authors some ideas for their next book. And we do have a comment in the Q&A. I scream, you scream, we all scream for Ice Queens. So that's one vote for Ice Queens. All right, let me look at my list here for another question. I am doing this on the fly. Um,
Could I ask a question while you're
yeah,
looking at
go
your
ahead.
questions? Um, I'm just interested to know if all of the other authors on the panel, do you decide your trope before you sit down to write the book? And what elements of the book does that help you develop when you know the trope?
Oh,
Does that
good question. Okay, why don't we start with Catherine?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I love tropes, and so I think you go into a book thinking, how do I bring the readers in? And so certainly by identifying what trope you're going to examine, or, that's a really good way to do it. I would also say that I almost always start with the character. What is the character's wound, and what is the emotional arc that she's going to go on? And when you think about that, then sometimes it very naturally segues into a specific trope. But um, yeah, in one of the books that I'm thinking about writing next, I definitely started with the trope, and that was sort of like well, I don't know, is true crime a trope, or is that a theme? I don't know. But anyway, I've started with, I
practically
think,
a genre?
yeah, it's definitely a genre. I think there are like tropey parts of the true crime. So I think when I've started thinking about that, I've started going to the tropes that naturally gravitate towards that specific genre. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure that answered your question, but that's all I have.
Oh, I like that. There's a lot of, thought that goes into
Um,
before you start writing. Karis, how about you? Do you think about tropes? Do they inform your writing in the beginning?
They'll come in after, but my starting point is usually setting.
Oh,
So, like the one in Leavenworth, it just kind of lends itself to a city mouse or city mouse goes to country mouse type of story. My new one, Riverbend, that's coming out in June, I wanted it set in Bend, Oregon, and the kind of trope or theme of nature being healing came after the setting and then kind of drove the story and the characters from there. So yeah, it comes in though pretty early on but it's, for me, it's kind of set by the setting. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And Rad, do you want to answer your question?
Did Joy get to go?
No,
You want
but
me to just blab
I'm
away
asking
again?
next.
Okay. I start with character, like Catherine does, and then I start with character and conflict. Those two things I need to know. But I usually also have a sense very, very soon on what kind of story I'm writing. For me, some of the themes, like Karis mentioned, like nature heals. For me, love is redeeming is the theme that I frequently you'll find in almost every single one of my books, and it's not a trope; it's actually a theme. So for me, the two kind of play together and get interwoven, the themes and the trope from very early on in the book. But I do start initially with character and conflict.
Okay. Interesting. And Joy.
The trope kind of just works itself out. I start with character usually and what the situation is. And as I'm writing it, the trope just kind of appears. That might not be the way you're supposed to write, but that's just what happens when I do it.
Yeah.
I kind of have the characteristics of the main characters and then who the side characters are, and then, get an idea of what they need to do within the story.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
If I'm going to write a second chance romance, then I know that from the beginning. And that's a trope that I think, that informs the entire story. If you say, well, okay, I feel like writing a second chance romance, then that from the very beginning determines almost all the backstory for both characters. So that, I think, is a trope that you have to know about at the beginning, or you can't write it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I also think that if you are going to write a specific genre, like let's say fantasy, you have to immediately know what the tropes are and which ones you're going to include and which ones you will not include, because I think that genres that are so specific like that, or for example, science fiction, that are so specific like that, that if you don't include those tropes, I'm not sure that your story will be successful.
Interesting. Would you agree with that? Like, Brad reads a lot of sci-fi.
I don't think about it in terms of tropes. And I think that we all have really slightly different definitions of tropes. Because for me, I think about genre elements. And, if you're going to write a sci-fi fantasy, you better have a control center somewhere, I mean, there's things that readers will look for that you need in a particular genre. I don't always think about that as a trope. For me, a trope is just an overall mechanic of the story. Like when you say small town, big town, second chance romance. What else do I have? The secret baby, rags to riches. I mean, it's just a little phrase, but it sums up what's happening in the whole story. So I think tropes are in a little box, but I think what you're talking about is a big box with essential elements for a particular genre. Does that feel right?
Oh, that feels absolutely right. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
that feels absolutely right.
Okay.
Cool. Since you brought it up, Brad, do you want to explain the difference between a second chance romance and a reunion romance? Because I feel like this gets confused a lot.
They are different. A second chance romance doesn't necessarily mean it's the same person. A second chance romance is a person who takes a second chance on love. It doesn't necessarily mean, in my mind, at any rate, and everybody can work this differently. But reunion means you knew the person in the past. You knew them, say, for me, if I'm writing a reunion romance, I'm thinking about young lovers, maybe in high school, or very early in life for some reason separate and they don't know why. I mean, that's usually how that trope develops. It's like, why did you leave me when I was 18 or 17 or whatever? And then they meet again and they rebuild their relationship as, you know, who they've come to be. And that to me is a reunion romance. A second chance romance, like When Love Comes Around, which is the one that I collaborated with Veronica Black, happens after, and I'm not giving anything away because it happens very early on, is someone who loses their partner. And so now in life, a second chance romance is another chance at love. So that, I think it's a very fine distinction, and you know, authors may not agree with that. That's kind of how I separate them.
Yeah, interesting. We have a question in the Q&A from Anne Hart. Tropes and themes is interesting. We're talking a little bit about both. What is the difference? What's the difference between a trope and a theme? Anyone who has an answer can jump in.
I'm shutting up.
I think these guys need a minute, so why don't you go ahead?
I can take a stab if you're, you know,
Go
kind to me.
go for trope and I'll take theme.
Oh, well, I was actually going to start with theme.
Okay, you go with theme.
I think for me, a theme has to be a full sentence. Like, so for example, you can't say love or love. It has to be, in order to find your true love, you have to do X, Y, and Z. So that becomes a theme that you have to, you know, dig down deep into yourself and see what you need to improve. So that would be a theme, where a trope is what Rad said earlier, but, you know, like rags to riches, where you don't really have to explain it very much, that everybody understands the sort of parameters of the trope. And while any author can do it however she wants, but the trope itself is set in stone. And I would say that a theme is very different because each author hopefully is creating her own theme for that specific book or that journey or that character arc. What do you think?
I think that's really close. I mean, I would have said very much the same. No, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. I'm saying it's very close to what I would have said. For me, and I think theme is one of the hardest things to understand. And I think it's one of the things that we don't often know the theme of our book when we first start out. Sometimes we do, but a theme is usually the message. Like,
Right.
What is the message of this story? And it usually is a sentence, which is, you have to risk loss to gain love. That's a theme. Whereas a trope is more of a framework. It's kind of a tag that gives the idea of what your story is going to be about. Because if you say, you know, second chance romance, then your reader absolutely knows right away what it's going to be. So it's like a little marketing keyword, and it also helps authors think about what they're going to be writing, and it helps readers recognize what it is. But the message for your book is much more deep inside the story and emerges as you write.
Okay, two good answers.
There's more of a defined list of tropes, whereas themes could be much greater. There are much more themes that could be.
And it's very personal. I mean, the theme is going to be very personal to your work and to
Right.
that particular story. It's a tough concept, but when you feel it, you know it. Like, you know, sometimes in the past, people have said, well, what are the themes? What if you said, what are your themes? And for me, it's always really simple. Love heals. That's a whole sentence. And that's what every single one of my books is about.
Yeah. Okay. So nice question. Since there are some readers out there who do think that tropes make romances predictable, have you ever tried to do a unique or different spin on a popular trope? Have you tweaked it? Have you put your own mark on it? Have you done a trope in a new and interesting way that readers aren't expecting? Karis?
Well, my first instinct is no, which is kind of sad. But I think I kind of followed the guidelines fairly well with my stories, because that's what I like in this type of story. And so I'm not trying to shock or put something in there. I mean, if there's an animal in the story, you don't have to go to Goodreads for a spoiler to see if it's okay. It should be okay. So I think that I like kind of the predictability of it, and some of the contract that I'm making with my readers is that this is the type of story you're going to get. I'm going to have unique characters if possible. I'm going to have a setting that I can kind of make my own. And yeah, but I don't know that I do anything really shocking with them.
No, I think that's totally, legitimate too. There's like people love tropes, and some people get angry when you turn the trope in a different direction because they're expecting one thing and getting another. So I think that's absolutely a perfect response. Joy, how about you? Have you ever done your own spin on a trope?
Yeah, I would go back to the book I mentioned before now. I guess that would be considered a reunion trope, but it's a reunion from somebody's past life where they knew each other to the current life. And I do try to mix it. Sometimes I have more than one trope in there, but I don't do it like shockingly. But I do try to step out of it a little bit to make it a little bit more unique.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And what about you, Catherine?
Um, I, I don't know how concerned I am with tropes. I mean, tropes are a great jumping off point, but I think that you need to, once you have your trope, you need to figure out how your characters uniquely move through that trope. And is that a spin? I don't know. I think that thanks to Radclyffe's very clear definition between theme and trope, I think that I'm more concerned with themes as I move through my books because I think that sort of informs how the characters see how life works and how I, as an author, feels how life works. So I feel like that becomes the original spin to any sort of trope. So I think by maybe definition that by writing an original book, you are putting a new spin on a trope by just sort of connecting a specific trope to a different theme, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good response. And Rad.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't intentionally try to choose a trope and then do something unusual with it. I don't even think about it that way. Like, I just looked at my little list again, and so I picked out marriage of convenience. Like, if you said marriage of convenience, everybody would know, and everybody on the panel would know what that story is about. But that's it. I mean, then it becomes, as Catherine just said, your original work, because there can be all kinds of setups for a marriage of convenience. So even though you're telling the reader this is what the story will be about, what makes it unique is the circumstances, like how do those characters end up together, and did they know each other before, and how do they feel about, do they like each other, do they not like each other, is one of them my brother's sister's wife's niece, that kind of thing. So I think that the trope is again kind of like a little signpost that you hang up, and then everything else is original to your story and your characters.
Interesting. Okay. So, okay. My next question is,
You're doing good on the fly here, Sam.
I know I'm trying. I'm just trying to formulate this in my head before I can say it out loud. How much does the trope say about your character before the reader ever starts the book, right? So if you have something like marriage of convenience or secret baby or age gap.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, like what is it that trope confers to the reader about who your characters are? Go ahead, Rad. We'll give these guys a chance to
I
think.
just had a thought. It's not an answer, it's a thought. But it tells the reader something about what the conflict's going to be. And I think that's pretty interesting. And we were talking about, well, can you disappoint the reader by not following through on your trope? And that might be, say, if you advertise something as an age gap romance and the ages aren't important to the characters, then you've got a problem, because the trope is suggesting to the readers that that is going to be the issue. And if you don't make it the issue when you write the book, then you've subverted the trope. So I think that you can make it as unique as you want, but if you're going to write to a trope, it has to actually include the trope in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. Karis, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking of the like grumpy sunshine trope. I mean, that's definitely going to affect how you create these characters, because if you're saying that, you need to have really distinct, this one's a grump, this one's cheery type of thing. But like a friends to lovers could be any characters that get into this situation and then progress through it. So yeah, I think it kind of depends on the trope, if it's something that really is defining for the characters or not, or if it's just kind of the overall arc of the story.
Yeah, I can see that. Different tropes kind of inform your characters to a greater or lesser extent. Catherine, anything to add?
Well, I thought Karis's answer was almost perfect. I mean, in my most recent book, the trope is the skeptic versus the believer, and I think that when people come into the book, they automatically know that there's going to be two sides, and one person's going to be on one, and one person's going to be on the other. But I think the question that then takes over is why. And I think that is really sort of like it's a scaffolding that everybody's very comfortable with. And then when they get in, they get to see, how you're building the room.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Joy.
I agree with Karis as well. It depends on the trope. The friends to lover, which is what I write a lot of, the characters create the trope, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I don't start with the trope and then, add the characters in. So yeah, it depends on the trope.
Okay. Cool. All right, we have a question in the chat. If I can find it again, from Claire. If using multiple tropes in one book, which ones are a good match and which tropes should never go together? We are romancing our tropes. Which ones are going to end up together and which ones are going to be bitter exes?
You should not have friends to lovers and what was the other one where they're the opposite? They don't get
enemies
along.
To lovers?
Yeah, enemies to lovers. You can't have that in the same book.
Okay. All right. Actually, though, I think Kimberly Cooper Griffin kind of did that. She has a book called I Hate You, Now Kiss Me. Which is perfect title for our conflict or kisses thing. I wish she was on this panel, but they were childhood friends, and the relationship, broke up. One of them betrayed the other, and that's how the friendship ended. And then they meet again as adults. So she did kind of cram it in there. But I agree, those two, that would be a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Brad, how about you? Tropes that should never go together.
An easy one is sexual awakening and age gap, because very often you have one character who is exploring their sexuality, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the older character, but those two tend to work well together, I think.
So they go well. Okay.
Yeah, no, they go well. Sexual awakening and age gap romances, I think those are two that almost always actually, well, not always, but may have that element. I think that there's not too many that are actually totally opposite. I think you nailed it. I mean, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, except if your friend is not your best friend, but it's a friend you don't like. I mean, we don't all like our friends. So, well, we should probably like our friends, but acquaintance. So I think, yeah, it's true. Those two are polar opposites. So it'd be hard to make that work, but Kim did it.
Yeah. Karis, any thoughts on tropes that go together or tropes that don't?
I think that you could find ways to combine things. I mean, you could make a why choose romance. And so you've got friends to lovers here and enemies to lovers here, and they're all kind of mushed together with three different people. I mean, I think there are ways that you could make them work, but you also don't want to have a story that's going to promise one thing and then you're trying to force it into something else.
Right.
Then you're going to ask for something like a miscommunication, so now they're enemies to lovers and things. So I think that it has to be organic to the story in order for them to work well together. And I just wouldn't think that you could come up with tropes and force the story into it. Seems like you might have the story idea and then it would kind of play into the different tropes in different ways. It seems like that would be a better direction to go.
It's a good thought. Catherine, anything to add?
I think that I don't know. I mean, I think there are like tropes that can work with a lot more storylines than others. I mean, I think like the love triangle is one of those tropes that can work with almost any romance, right? I mean, whether it is you know, sorry?
Good one.
Oh, thank you. You know, so I feel like when you have the love triangle, you can just like throw anything else at that particular story. I actually like the love triangle, although I don't think I've ever written it, so maybe I should think about that. But the idea is that yeah, so I don't know. I mean, and then there are ones like in fantasy, like the chosen one, which is a huge trope in the fantasy, and that I think takes precedence over maybe other tropes. So I don't know. I mean, maybe the stronger that I don't know. I'm just sort of unthoughtfully answering the question, so I'll stop.
No, no, I think we're all thinking about this on the fly. Nobody's
prepared
for these questions. So we're all just doing our
We're all pantsing here.
That is true.
Hey, Sam, there was
Yes.
a really good question in the chat about how do we signal the trope to readers?
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's the next one.
And since it's all on you because it's the blurb.
Well,
and Sandy is the queen of blurbs.
She is. She makes every book better with her blurbs. Thank you so much, Sandy.
The author does, the work initially to get the bones of the blurb in place, because most of the time the book isn't even written yet.
Right.
So I don't even know what it's about unless they tell me. But yes, tropes are important in marketing. I'm interested in what you guys think about using tropes in marketing. Do you use the tropes to try to sell your books to readers? Do you just are they not important? You just think they'll find out when they get there? What do you think? Is it a selling point? Start with Joy.
I don't think about making it a selling point. The blurb does tell you, it should tell you what the trope is without them having to dig into it too much. So the blurb itself is a selling point. So I guess it does, but I don't think about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that's fair. Karis?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that. I was thinking of like my mysteries, if someone's looking for, and I'm not sure if this would really be a trope, but like a hard-hitting police procedural, and they come to my university police books. That's not going to be what they're looking for. But if they read the blurb and there's romance and there's mystery in a university setting, that gives them, and I'm kind of messing around with tropes here, but that gives them kind of a more overall picture of what they're going to get from the story and a more accurate picture, I think. So yeah, I would talk myself out of what the question is. But yeah, I think it's a lot in the blurb because they come to it then with a set of expectations and a set of kind of a promise that we've made to this is what you're going to get in this story.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rad, do you use the tropes to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you don't have to be as blatant to say as this is a rags to riches romance, but in your blurb, you're going to introduce the reader to the characters and to something about the characters and the story. And usually you want to try to sneak in there what the conflict is and what the trope is. So you're going to say, so and so returns to and has to work with so and so that years ago. I'm just trying to show that there's a lot you can do with your blurb that will telegraph to the reader who the characters are, what their issues are, and what the story's about. So I think you can get the trope in there. And then obviously when we put the book up on the web store, they get little keywords attached to them. So then you can put your trope in.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll talk to that at the end when I've heard from Catherine. So Catherine, do you use the tropes to sell the books to readers?
Absolutely. I think that it's really important to instantly create a connection between you, your book, and the reader. And I think tropes do that unbelievably well. It's one of the reasons I love tropes so much. And then when the reader says, "Oh my God, I really like that idea," or "I love that trope," if they know the word and they jump into the book, now you have them. And so now you just got to keep them, which is, really, really hard but saying that, I think it's a great way to connect you and your readers.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to kind of what everyone's been saying, I think it's important to tell your publisher your tropes, because there are ways, like Rob was saying about keywords, there are like invisible ways in the metadata to make your book more searchable. And publishers, have access to a lot of stats about what people search for on like Amazon and things like that. So we can see like, oh, love triangles, is the most popular, romance trope search, and things like that. And I would actually say, Rad, that it is useful to put the actual words people use for the trope in your blurb. Even though it sounds corny and, readers and writers can sometimes roll their eyes, it helps your book be more discoverable to readers when people are searching, rich girl, poor girl, or second chance, or love triangle, whatever. Actually,
Readers do search with those.
mhm,
I mean, we know that from looking at search engine optimization.
yeah,
I mean, readers will put that in, enemies to lovers, and search for those. So Sandy's right on that call,
I have
yeah.
a question.
as always.
I have a question about that. Would you put that like as the title or just slip it somewhere in there?
I mean, if you can think of a good title that includes it, like that would be ideal. Also, subtitle works. We have a few that we've used the trope as a subtitle, or the blurb. I mean, kind of, in order of like best to, good enough. I think the title is like ideal if you can think of one. Like Georgia Beers just had a new book, The Girl Next Door.
Okay.
Which is perfectly, tied into that trope, and that's going to get, great
It is
exposure.
a trope. It is a trope.
It is, yeah.
And my first responder series too. I mean, and like Karis's college, I'm not
Release,
sure how
yep.
do you have it on your cover?
No,
It is in the
they all
metadata.
have
What about their theme?
college words in them, university words in them.
But like first responders or an emergency room romance, like that shows up under my title, like Code Call in July is Code Call and ER romance. So that would get picked up if somebody searched for that, search for medical romance or ER romance.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would vote for be as specific as you can. Obviously without, making it cringe, but in terms of making your book discoverable, I think I would vote to include them. So thank you all so much. This was
Thank
fun.
you, Sandy.
That's
You
be a
did
surprise
great.
moderator. We have many more panels ongoing throughout the afternoon, so please join us for readings in just about 8 minutes. Thank you to all my lovely panelists.
No, you guys were great. Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
posting the link to the sale in the chat right now. if you want to go and grab all these books. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.